Hockey Inside Out, brought to you by Videotron.
Welcome back to another episode of Hockey Inside Out. Happy to be joined by Chris Nilan and Jack Todd today. The Olympics are on, supposed to bring together the youth of the world. There's 5 guys in the hockey tournament over age 40. We have Jagr, Alfredsson, Selanne, Nedved, and Ozolinsh. Could you imagine playing past age 40 at the Olympics?
Olympics for the elderly. Honestly, no, I couldn't. Again, playing the game the way I played it, be so difficult to play past the age of 35.
Birthday
What's this?
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Knuckles. Happy birthday to you.
Have enough wind to blow?
Yeah, enough
Chris's
wind.
birthday on Tuesday. Happy birthday from everybody at
Thanks for the heart attack on the plate. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, you know, playing past the age of 40, too difficult. Again, the highly skilled players, the guys who put the numbers up, you know, especially Olympic hockey, bigger rink, they're able to have more room out there. It won't be as physical for them. So, again, plugged into a good team, you can still be successful with guys like that. And, you know, when you look at the age of some of them, they get out there. Some of them are freaks of nature. You look at Shelley, how long he played, and Selanne. It's incredible. Jagr, same thing. So I'm sure they'll all do fairly well for their team.
They'll be fun to watch. We had asked the HIO community to send some questions for Jack and Chris. We have one from Jeff LaPearl asking, Jack, who would you start in goal for the Olympics for Team Canada, and who's going to win the gold medal?
Well, starting in goal, you know, they're starting Carey against Norway and then Luongo against Austria. Carey Price has the job. Unless he gives up 8 goals to Norway, I don't see any way he can be supplanted. I don't even think they have the right second and third people there. I would have Josh Harding as my immediate backup for Carey Price, but he'll be the one to carry the ball. And I think Canada's going to win. I said, kind of a process of elimination. I covered the tournaments in Nagano and in Torino when they didn't play that well. But they've done a really good selection this time. You know, they went with speed, which was the whole key that they were missing in the past. Russia, I think, has too much pressure. The U.S. did a bad job with their selection. I think it's Canada's goal to lose. You
know, I honestly, as far as goaltending situation for Canada, I hope they start Johnny Bauer.
Well, we know you're cheering for Team USA. We have another question here from Anthony Glavinik. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He has Vlasic and Bouwmeester are starting ahead of Subban. How important is the left versus right in defense pairings?
Well, apparently it is for this coach. I don't think it's such a big deal, but this coach does. Again, I like mixing it up, getting guys on their opposite side, especially on the power play. You know, and I'm sure we'll probably see some of that for guys setting up for the one-timer. But, you know, this coach, he has certain philosophy in the way he coaches, and he sticks by that. And good on him if that's what he wants. But I still I disagree with, I guess, some of the experts saying Subban's like 7 or 8 on the depth chart. I don't get that.
I don't get the problem with the left-right because PK is never where he's supposed to be anyway. You know, really, if you're sitting this guy on the big ice, I think you're wasting a huge potential there. You know, at some point he's going to play, and I think he's going to show what he can do.
It's sort of like Drew Doughty, the last Olympics. He started off as a
played his way up from nowhere to somewhere.
Yeah. Another question from Gary Kerwin of Ottawa. He says, I wonder why Subban is always the last player off the ice after the game. He says, I remember Guy Lapointe and Larry Robinson being the last player off, but they weren't the new guy on the block at that time. Does that have anything to...
Doesn't make a difference if he's new or he's old. That's his thing, you know. I used to come out after Patrick Roy. I was always the first player out of the room. The guys never messed with the lineup coming out. Guys all went in order. And it's just the order that you fell in, and you stayed that way. You know, it's more superstition than anything, I believe.
Another question from Andrew Gregory, who lives in Edmonton. He says he follows the Habs on RDS and HIO. Also for Knuckles, have any current players come up and asked you for advice?
Oh. Not really. I mean, I've talked to Max. I've given Max advice on a few occasions. You know, he's going through some tough times. You know, I just tell him that a lot of things you can't control. Yeah, especially in Montreal. You can't control the media, what people say or think about you. The only thing you can control is the way you play. You do that, and the rest will take care of itself.
Jack, what kind of impact do you think the Olympics are going to have on Pacioretty?
Oh, I think it'll be good for him. You know, he's on a terrific line there with Kessler and my least favorite player in the entire National Hockey League, Phil Kessel. I think they'll be very dangerous. I don't think the U.S. is good enough to win. Probably help Max's confidence working on the big ice, everything. Not that his confidence was hurting going into the games. He went in very hot. He's a terrific player, even if one of our national broadcasters calls him Pacioretty, but I think he'll get to know who he is.
What is it about Phil? You think he should play more like Amanda?
Well, that comes back, we have 7 Canadians over in Sochi. The Leafs don't have that many. How much of an impact is that going to have after the Olympics? Because the Leafs are right on the Canadians' tail.
They are, and again, listen, guys going over there continuing to play, they might come back with an edge, honestly. Guys, being out 2 weeks isn't the best thing either. It's nice to, hockey players don't like to miss, games or time off. It's nice to have it. And then you get back on the ice, you got to get back in shape. They can ride the bike, they can go out and skate, but they're not going to be in the shape when they left. These guys from the Olympics, they're going to come back and they're going to be in game form, ready to go. It's the rest of the guys who are going to have to catch up.
Another question here from Scott Hinckley, who's actually in Florida, Port St. Lucie, Florida. He said he expected Jarrett Tenorti to make the team this year, but how much more AHL seasoning does he need, Jack?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of the guy. Obviously, the club thinks he needs some more. I think they're fine where they are. If they can leave him there, let him play, get heavy game action is what he needs more. I think the whole philosophy for the Canadians, it isn't really aimed at this year. It's aimed at bringing guys along at the right speed. They've done a good job. Beaulieu was ready when he got here, obviously. He's playing really well.
How big a jump was it for you when you made that first jump, Chris?
To me, the speed was the whole thing. Just a little bit, everything, it was a little bit quicker. As far as the fighting, same thing, just big idiots. Have to latch onto a big idiot and go. But, again, it's a difficult adjustment. Tenorti was good enough to be here last year. I think they were desperate. They were playing a big, tough team in the playoffs in Ottawa, so they throw him right in the fire. And then all of a sudden he isn't good enough to be here this year. I really didn't understand that. I do now. I'm glad he's down there. I'm glad he's logging a lot of ice time. But honestly, I'd like to see him here sooner rather than later.
We'll be right back after a short break, and we'll answer some more questions from the HIO fans. Welcome back to Hockey Inside Out. We'll follow up with some more questions from the HIO community. We have Jerry DiNardo. His question for both Jack and Chris is, should Marc Bergevin trade one of the Habs' young defensemen in Hamilton for an NHL forward with some goal-scoring ability? Jack?
To me, that's the kind of move you make when you're close. And they're not close. Those young defensemen are the treasure of the future, and you don't give them up in order to maybe win one more game in the playoffs or something at this stage.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree. Listen, you're trying to build this team for the long term, not the short term, and to keep your draft picks and keep your good young players and try and develop them. That's how you're going to end up having success down the road. If you keep moving guys or you move a big prospect just to get a guy that can come in and help you short term, not a good thing, I don't think.
Well, Nathan Beaulieu, they've obviously did a good job developing him on the farm. He's looked really good since he's come up. That trade for Diaz for Weiss, was that a good move, Jack?
Initially I thought not. I really like Diaz. He's a beautiful player. When you see him, you need to see him live, and you see the way he can move the puck and all that. But like they said, he wouldn't hit the ocean if you threw him into it. So, they appear to have gotten a very useful player back. I'm surprised at his speed. And with Beaulieu playing the way he is, they weren't going to re-sign Diaz. So,
your first impressions of Weiss?
I liked him. Again, you're getting bigger. The team's getting bigger. He's a good-sized forward. One of the type of guys who can do that third, fourth line work for you that you need come playoff time. And Rafael Diaz was a loyal trooper for this team. He did what he was asked. He kept his mouth shut. I really like the guy. I met him on a couple of occasions, and just a really nice guy. I was kind of sad to see him go, but I'm also happy for him. He'll get an opportunity in Vancouver. He's a good little player, can move the puck. But again, with the young D-men that Montreal has coming up, I think it was a good move for the Canadians.
Another question we have here. This one is from Glenn Weir. It's for Knuckles. He's asking, how would you rank the following fighters? I'll give you a few of them. Mario Roberge, Milan Lucic, Todd Ewan, Bob Probert, and as he put it, Ty Dummy.
How would I rank them?
Is it one of them, those guys that stands out?
Yeah, Proby, obviously. Proby, to me, was probably the toughest ever to play the game, you know, as far as a guy who could put the puck in the net and fight. And, you know, he was a guy who could, you know, take a shot and bounce back from it, too. You know, that fight with Todd Ewan, when he got knocked out, he come back and it was payback time, and Todd ended up on the worst end of that one. But it just goes to show you, when you fight anybody in the National Hockey League, people always ask me to classify guys. I never did when I played or fought guys, because I put myself at a disadvantage if I did that. I never classify guys. I treated them all the same. I knew they were all tough. And once you start doing that, oh, this guy's real tough, he's not so tough, that's when you start swallowing teeth.
Jack, do you have a memorable moment from watching this guy play when you were covering them?
I don't think one particular moment, but I'll tell you, I think there's a reason why the Habs haven't been the same since he quit, because I think this guy has never really been replaced in all these years. And that's saying a mouthful.
Well,
you know, they had John Ferguson, they had Pierre Bouchard, and then they had Chris. And since then, there's been 100 guys shuffled through there. I guess Kordic was probably the best fighter that they had, but he was a mess upstairs.
Yeah.
And you've never been replaced. That says something.
Brandon Pruss might be the closest I can think of since Knuckles was gone. We have another question here from Ali Haba, as he goes by on HIO. His question, Chris, is at the beginning of the '86 playoffs, did Larry Robinson actually threaten Patrick Roy by telling him no more bad goals? I think that's some legend that's gone.
Yeah, I don't believe. Larry wasn't a guy who threatened anybody. You know, maybe someone on the other team, maybe Philadelphia in that famous brawl. But Larry wasn't like that with his teammates. You know, he was a guy who was positive with his teammates, positive affirmation all the time. He's just a great teammate. I don't believe that ever happened. And if it did, I must have been sick that day.
Jack, we had a lot of people on the site ask the same question. Why does every Habs coach seem to stress the same defensive system?
Because it keeps coaches' jobs.
Yeah, every coach in the league does.
Exactly. That's the simple answer. If you want to stay coaching, you know, you're not nearly as much fun to watch, but, you know, you're going to get those tie games, you're going to win some in shootouts, you're going to eke your way into the playoffs. And it doesn't seem, it's been this way since Pat Burns, even since Lemaire. And it doesn't really change, and it probably isn't going to change unless somehow you have a team that has Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin up front, and the coach can afford to turn them loose.
How much, Chris, do you blame or praise Jacques Lemaire for the defensive hockey we see
I don't
today?
blame him at all. Listen, it's winning. It's a winning formula. One thing it'll do, it'll get a group of guys to care about the team and play for the team, playing within that system. There is not enough talent for teams to play run and gun hockey. There just isn't. It's impossible. You can't. And look at Chicago. They win a Stanley Cup, and the way the league is now with free agency and everything, they couldn't even keep that team together. And yeah, they had a little dip and they bounced back. But how many teams can play run and gun hockey? You just can't do it.
That's what
Except at the Olympics. I'm hearing so much talk from people like Ed Snyder knocking the Olympics. I think one reason is people like Bettman and Snyder don't want people to see the difference between the everyday NHL product and what you're going to see over the next 10 days.
Well, it's the best players in the world. That's why when people compare the NHL
well,
to the Olympics, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, come on, 82-game season.
I remember 98, Naganel, Chris Stevenson from the Ottawa Sun sitting with me, 2,000 people in the arena watching the Czechs and the Finns in a round-robin game, and Stevenson and I laughed all the way through the game, just watching the incredible speed of these guys flying one way, flying the other way. 2-2 game, and still probably the best hockey game I've ever seen.
We're talking about coaching, Chris. What grade would you give Michel Therrien for the job he's done this season?
I'd give him B+. You know, I think he's done a good job with this team. You know, a team that we've all said is too small. And I think it catches them on certain nights. Their size certainly does catch them on some nights, but when they're going, and when he gets them in a position to go on the ice and play and execute, they've done well. I think he's got this team to overachieve since he's been here.
Jack?
You know what? I think he was really getting knocked a lot during that long slump, and I don't think it's an entire coincidence that they came out of the slump when Ryan White came back into the lineup. He really stiffens up that fourth line. He brings that dimension they don't have. The guy can play up front around the opposition net as well as he does everything else. When Therrien doesn't have that kind of player, he's going to struggle.
Well, that's it for another episode of Hockey Inside Out. Happy birthday again, Knuckles.
Thanks.
Everybody enjoy the Olympics, and we'll be back next week with a new HIO show.
Thanks for the heart attack.